We're live.
All right. Hey guys, so we're going to do a walkthrough of Augur and its UI, and we'll be basically going through the install process and making some markets and playing around with it. So I'm going to switch to screen share now. So if you go to, I'll link everybody here. If you go to that GitHub repo and you clone it, and then to install, so you have to use sudo for this first command. Sudo npm install -g grunt CLI. And then just regular npm install. You can see I have Geeth running in the background here. This is probably an important step as well. So when you launch Geeth, that's a bad example. You're going to want to launch it with these parameters. I'll paste them in here.
We could go ahead and even if you don't have Geeth running, Augur's going to prompt you telling you that Geeth isn't running, and will give you the exact parameters you need to start up with.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I forgot about that. And then you do grunt browserify.
You want to do? Is it? I'm not sure what build that does. To be honest.
I think it does.
The alpha branch.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't actually test the not. We'll do that right now. Let me try that.
Someone is asking if this is specific for OS X.
So if you have Linux, it should work. Windows, probably not.
I wouldn't even know where to start with Windows.
So anyway, you do npm start, and it will run it in a local host. Which branch is this, Scott? Do you know?
I'm just checking right now. I think actually that I think that startup's not going to work, or it doesn't matter. I mean, we can play in the dev branch. Let me just make sure. I'm just checking.
Okay.
It pushed that. Your instructions actually, which probably should be changed, puts us in the dev branch, which is really fine. It might be nicer to use the alpha, which would be just slightly. I mean,
Okay. How do I get in the alpha branch?
the alpha branch would be, instead of doing grunt browserify, you actually append the :build at the end, and that's going to start us up in the alpha branch, which I think it has one market in it. Let's see. They're both the exact same code base. They just start up with slightly different root branch parameters. So they're different, well, different sets of markets. Augur's built with the concept of having different branches, and we're not really utilizing them except for separate builds for alpha and demo, and just to separate our our markets for development.
As V. Abraham is asking if any specific version of Node is required.
No.
No.
Version of what?
Node.
Yeah.
Okay, so mine's still showing the dev branch.
You didn't do it right. I get 2 markets in. Okay, so it's just grunt browserify : build.
Yeah, that's what I did. Do I need to like?
Well, I just did it, and I'm looking at 2. This is actually a better demo. We should all be doing that.
Maybe refresh.
We definitely need to refresh.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Thanks, Niran.
Okay, so this is the alpha branch then. And if you click on markets, you can basically buy and sell shares in them. I'm going to say no. And if you see I buy 40 shares of no, it boosts the odds of no to 86.9%. And then if you look at Geeth, it's actually sent to the little transaction here. And should be incorporated into a block pretty soon. We can check if we want just by doing this. And it's already been incorporated into a block.
Joey, what did you just do right there? To check it?
Oh, I did eth.get transaction.
Okay.
And then
that is
you put
transaction.
you put the ID in quotes.
Okay. You might want to narrate what you're doing a little bit because your screen's at least it's kind of small for me.
Okay. And so anyway, so I bought those shares. I refreshed, and I have 40 shares held of no. The odds of no have, went up pretty high. And if I want, I can sell those shares again. So if I sell 5 shares, it's going to lower the odds a bit because I'm getting out of this market.
I'm going to buy some of yes.
And then you can see it's sent the transaction to Geeth. And these transactions tend to go pretty fast because the testnet blocks are coming in pretty fast now. So.
So yeah,
and then
the odds should be changing in real time now.
Oh, cool.
Buying and selling, right?
Oh, no. One of the other things is, so if you want to actually buy and sell shares in events right now, you'll need some cash, which is just basically like testnet play money that we've made. So what you want to do is you want to click on account, and you want to click on faucet. And what faucet will do is it'll send another transaction to Geeth, and it'll basically just update your balance with cash. And now I have 10,000 cash. So if you make a bad bet on the testnet, you can always just get more money from the faucet. And of course, you can send money to people. So we can also create markets. So if you click on submit a market, it'll basically say, enter a question. In the alpha version, it's only yes or no questions, binary outcomes, because we wanted to make it as simple as possible. The backend supports more types of markets, but we're going to need to wait until like beta to put those in the UI. Anybody have a good question?
Could you maybe walk through creating a market as an example and how that thing works?
Yeah, so if we ask a question, we can ask a question. Let's see, what's a good question? What do you ask from the table?
Someone, Kobe asked, what will the Ether price be in January 2016? Or, Jay Berg, who will win the Super Bowl?
So what will the Ether Okay, so we can't ask for either one because the UI doesn't support scalar markets.
All
So
right.
we'll go with the
Whoa.
let's
Pick a
go with
team.
somebody else from the beta was. Let's go with will the
I'm
Augur
gonna. Oh, okay.
launch before July 1st. Then you can set a fee, and that's just basically a trading fee. And the fee is basically divvied up amongst whoever created the market, so in this case me, and the people who report on it afterwards. You can also set the initial liquidity. So if you put a market with a small amount of liquidity, what's going to happen is if somebody comes in and wants to buy like 10 shares or $10 worth of shares, they're going to move the price quite a bit. But if we put a good amount of liquidity in, let's say we put in 2,000, then the market's not going to be as jumpy. And the date this matures would be July 1st, 2015. And so you can see it's pending. Geeth submits. So this actually takes 2 transactions to create a market. One is an event, and the event transaction is basically, so for more fancier types of markets, you can incorporate multiple events into a market. So that's why it has to be 2 separate transactions. And then so this market started off with odds of 50.5%. The reason it started off with odds like that is because since we use a market scoring rule, basically the initial liquidity I provided is going to get divvied up amongst both sides of the bet, and there's this parameter called alpha, and alpha is basically like, it's sort of like a profit parameter, how much profit you want to make as a market maker. And due to that, the math basically ends up if you start a market off with 50-50 on both sides, and your alpha is whatever we have in the UI, it's going to be 50.5. If you make a lower alpha, it'll pretty much approach 50%. So then we can buy and sell shares in this market like any other market. You can see the price here, how much volume, how many shares have been traded. The fee, there's no traders right now. This is my address because I'm the author. And does the comment system work yet, Scott?
Does the what system?
Comment system?
No, we don't have comments or price history yet.
Okay, gotcha. So eventually there'll be a price history.
What do you guys plan on using for comments?
Right now it's using Whisper.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah, it's a bit of. Right now we have a little bit of a hack to get to implement comments, but obviously it's not implemented yet. But yeah, we don't really have a great system for comments yet.
And then, so there's also rep, which is the other part of our system for reporting, or in the case of using it as an Oracle system. So like with Augur, you don't have to create prediction markets. You could just create an event. So a question about, what's the weather in Tokyo on May 23rd? And then you can get that data into the chain by our reporters answering it. And your report is weighted by a thing called reputation. And the reason for that is if we just had like one vote, one person, people could just make a bunch of accounts and Sybil attack it really easily. And so now I have 47 rep. Then let's see, there's nothing up to vote on right now. But if there were an expired decision, basically what would happen is it would appear in here. And so let's take the Sun market, for example. So after trading's closed, you need to decide how the payout's going to happen. Did this actually happen or not? And so you'll go to the ballot. It'll say, did the Sun actually engulf the Earth? And you'd obviously report no. You'd submit your ballot. and then basically once all the ballots are submitted, we basically do consensus on them, and if people went against the consensus, they lose some reputation. If they went with it, they gain reputation from people who either went against it or people who didn't report at all. So if you don't report, you'll lose reputation.
Is reputation tradable, or?
Yeah, it is tradable. You can send it around.
So it's in a way like a token?
Yep.
Is it like vote coins from TruthCoin?
Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Okay. By the way, the UI looks great, simple and nice, clean, looking great. And by the way, if reputation is the vote coins, what is cash? Is like the
cash will be in the real version. Cash will be Ether and sidechain Bitcoin. Those come out.
Right. This is looking great. What were like some of the biggest challenges you guys had while building it, aside from the super sketchy alpha network you had to build on?
So I mean, Scott talked about the UI. That's like for prediction markets. It's hard to make a UI that's easy to understand. From the back-end perspective, the hardest part is probably just making sure that all your contracts interact with each other properly on Ethereum, and that you don't have little bugs appearing. And the hardest part is actually, I would say, testing things, because yeah, you can test with the PyEthereum tester module, but it's really not the same as testing on chain. And when you test on chain, you realize there's a bunch of little bugs that you didn't know existed, or that something has changed and you're doing it a different way, and the latest version of Ethereum is different now. So I would say the biggest challenge is testing things, actually.
Any advices you could give to other people building dApps on Ethereum?
So the first thing I would say is make sure you basically like plan out your data structures really well. When we started, we didn't really do that too well, and then about like halfway through, we realized that our data structures weren't as optimal as they could be, and they weren't really abstracted enough. And so we basically rewrote them, which required us to rewrite a lot of contract code. And creating good data structures is really important in smart contracts, because of the way that, for instance, we have probably like 20 or 30 different contracts, and if you don't extract things properly, people can easily attack the system, or there's vulnerabilities that are there. And so really plan out your data structures is my advice.
Do you collaborate with other projects on the Ethereum space or Bitcoin?
So we talked to the blockchain guys quite a bit. They haven't really released anything yet. They're supposed to have something very soon. And other projects we work with, the EtherX exchange. That's a very good project. And we want to basically have reputation tradable on EtherX, because that'd be kind of cool to be able to just buy on EtherX.
Yeah. So what are your plans for Frontier now that you mentioned this?
So for Frontier, in Frontier we plan to be beta testing. So what will probably end up happening is we'll probably make a private chain, and so that way people don't have to deal with getting real Ether to do stuff on our markets. And because each time you do a little transaction here, it does cost a little bit of Ether, and so we want the testing barrier to be pretty low. So we'll probably just make a Augur chain or something for Frontier and test on that.
And on Homestead, do you plan on transitioning back on the Ethereum chain, or?
Yep. Homestead, we plan to use the live chain with live money and everything live.
Live monies, real virtual money. So I know what I see one question here in the box. What currency is used for P/L, and where do you check margin?
So margin, so the way this works is since it's on a smart contract, you can't really trade with margin in these. You probably could find somebody else to create another smart contract who would trade with margin with you on this, but it's a bad idea in my opinion, because anytime you involve margin with Bitcoin, unless you have like very, very close margin calls, it doesn't really work very well, because in crypto you have to have the funds. And so, but the other question was profit and loss, and that's done. So when you create a market in the final version, you'll be able to choose which currency you want to create the market in. So you'll be able to choose, section Bitcoin or Ether, and the profit and loss is just in those. Now, if you want to, there's a third option. You could create a market that basically uses a contract for difference to allow you to essentially, wager using something that's stable with respect to the U.S. dollar or yuan or whatever currency you want to do that with. And the way that works is one person takes double the volatility, and the other person doesn't. And the person who doesn't is the one who's betting using USD. And so the profit and losses are basically, for the first two, it's just Ether, Bitcoin, and then if you use one of those special sorts of markets, depending on which side you take, it could be either in Bitcoin or in USD.
I think that covers it. By the way, anyone in the chat room, if you want to unmute your mic and ask questions, please do. Otherwise, just write them in the chat box. Well, meanwhile, other questions are asked. Maybe you can say or talk about how the community can join and contribute to this project, how people can help out.
Yeah, so the UI is always something that needs help. We also need help with testing. There's lots of debugging that goes on, so it's always nice to have more people to do that, with us. Development-wise, and like the back end, there's not a whole lot right now. Once we get this alpha out there, then we'll need help with the back end, because right now it's we're not implementing a lot of features on it because we want to keep it relatively stable for the UI and the alpha test. But after that, if anybody wants to help on the back end, there's basically just a list of things that need to be implemented, and you can just join our Slack and post in the dev channel and help us with those. That's how, I don't know if Niren's in here, but he is somebody who basically solved the UI and just started helping with that, and he's done a lot of work on the UI.
That's great. Christian Calder seems to having a problem getting this to work on Linux. If you can read the message.
Oh, npm error.
What, Geeth or Augur?
The UI, I think. He's getting some npm error.
I have not tried to run this on a Linux system.
It's a shame in a way that we're gonna start this conversation on this, and then it will be lost. But at least it will be recorded, I suppose.
Hey guys, I have a question. Is the P&L the settlement? Is it atomic? And if so, how does the contract store Bitcoin's intermediary?
So the way the contract stores Bitcoins would be, so basically if you basically had a Bitcoin sidechain to Ethereum, you would have Bitcoins in the sidechain Ethereum side, and you'd basically send them to the contract, and basically they're just stored there until one of two things. They're stored in the central pot that is like the market scoring rules liquidity. And so the way those funds get out is if you sell your shares, you'll get your funds back immediately. Or if you wait until after the market's closed and it's resolved, if you predict it correctly, you'll get one whatever per share. So that could be Bitcoin, Ether, or in the case that you did like a contract for difference stable USD bet, it'd be roughly 1 USD. And yeah, what do you mean by atomic?
A DApp can't. I mean, a bot can't have a private key, a transparent bot. So I guess the answer is you're using some sort of side chain. So I'll have to look into. Atomic means trustless. If I guess the user, each trader has to put up his maximum risk at the beginning, right?
Right.
And then so I guess the only way this could work is, I guess it's side chains. I don't see how a contract could have a private key, right?
Oh, so contracts can basically store funds even though they don't have private keys. It's kind of an interesting thing on Ethereum that allows you to do that. And so that it's really easy for Ether. You just send Ether to the contract and it's there. And the only way that Ether gets out is if the contract itself initiates a send transaction. And the only way that happens is if someone somewhere initiates a transaction that meets the proper conditions that allows the contract to do that. And so it'd be very similar if you had sidechained Bitcoin. The way sidechained Bitcoin worked is you on the sidechain chain, like you don't actually have Bitcoin. You just have like the idea that you have Bitcoin. And if you lock it up in the sidechain, then you can provide a proof to the Bitcoin network and get it back on Bitcoin. But like the actual Bitcoin themselves never actually leaves Bitcoin. It's just a series of proofs to prove that you locked Bitcoin up on one side and to prove that you unlocked it on another. And so that part is basically just incrementing and decrementing a balance that's stored in the contract. The contract itself wouldn't hold the sidechain Bitcoin. It's just an abstraction. But for the Ether,
I
it would hold
believe
it.
this side chain works using some sort of atomic operation. That's what I meant by that.
Okay, yeah, that's right. It's an atomic operation that involves basically sending it to a provably unspendable output, and that output becomes spendable provided you lock the coins up on the sidechain. Oh, somebody asked, I don't quite understand creating a market and the amount you have to initially put up and how you make a profit. Could you explain the example of me wanting to put 500 on the market with the Cleveland Cavs defeat the Atlanta Hawks on May 22nd, and I wanted to bet yes? So there's two things here. Let's say you're just a bettor and you're betting on that and you want to bet yes and you put $500 on it. If they do defeat them, you'll get, so let's say you bought it 30 cents a share. So basically the odds for the Cleveland wasn't very good. Then you bought $500 worth. At the end of the market, you'll end up getting $1 per share. So you gained 70 cents per share that you bought. And that's one thing. The other thing is that you asked about is creating a market itself. And so when you create a market, you have to provide initial liquidity. And the way that works is, so if you provide a very small amount of initial liquidity, people probably won't trade on your market because let's say you provide $1 worth. As soon as I buy $1 of either side, the price is going to go up to like 99 cents a share, in which case I can't really make much profit out of that market, even if I have useful information. And so the more liquidity you provide, the more volume the market gets. And so as for making a profit, there are two things at play here. When you make a market, you set a fee. And so let's say the fee is 1%, and there's $100 of volume in that market. You'll get $1 guaranteed. Now at the end of the market, you do get part of your initial liquidity back. How much of the initial liquidity depends on, basically it depends on how like lopsided the market is. And so basically at the end of the market, you may get more than your initial liquidity back, or you may get slightly less. And so there's like this idea of an unconditional profit, and the way you enter that state is you get enough trading fees that no matter what happens to your initial liquidity, you don't lose money. Even in like the worst lopsided markets in the tests I've run, you usually don't lose much initial liquidity. You may lose like 1 or 2% of it. So basically, you make most of your profit on fees. You're not going to make much from the liquidity. The liquidity is just there to get people to use your market.
Looks like Zvi Abraham posted a gist with his error that he's getting. If you can check it, maybe.
Okay. So it looks like his Geef client doesn't actually have an account. And the way you get an account, I'm trying to remember. I don't remember have this memorized. I'm going to check real quick.
It's Geef account new, the spaces, and that'll. So you shut down Geef and do that. You have to shut down Geef and although I think there is actually a console command for that too, but that's the easy way to do a Geef account new, and it'll walk you through a new account. And then once that's done, you do Geef. You do the unlock primary, and it'll ask for that password again, and then you should be good to go. It'll start up.
Okay, somebody asked, how have you been determining the amount of liquidity to use to start a market? So that depends on a couple things. So if you're making the market and it's something that you want to get a lot of information about, let's say you're a company and you want to figure out some information, to incentivize people to provide that, you'll want to provide a lot of initial liquidity. But for a more normal market, like this person asked about a basketball game, the amount of liquidity you want to provide is, so if you think that your market's going to get a good amount of trades, which for a basketball game it probably would, you're going to want to provide more liquidity. If you think your market's not going to get very much volume, you want to provide less liquidity. And so this is kind of a thing that you won't really see how much is a good amount per se until after it's been in practice for a few weeks and we see what how it behaves and what sorts of volume people are putting on markets. And of course as the system grows, whatever market, whether it's a basketball market or a presidential election, is going to get more people trading on it. So you'll want to continue to provide higher and higher amounts of initial liquidity for that market. And so it's really just kind of a, yeah, you said, is it a guess? Yeah, I'd say it's an educated guess. You know, don't put something very small like $2 because in any scenario that's not going to work. But you know, maybe put 20 or 30 bucks to start out with, and see what happens. If eventually markets start getting thousands of dollars traded on them, you'll probably want to put a few $100 as initial liquidity.
Are there any other questions? Are we going to wait for a couple more or end this up? I don't see any questions in the hello channel either.
Yeah, I don't see any.
Yeah, I don't see any.
But in any case, I think it was a great session. Many questions asked, and you guys showed up something quite awesome. Oh, there it is.
Oh, that question was
I'll
repeat it,
I guess.
Once the market's
completed,
that liquidity
liquidity
returned to the account that sent the funds, and the answer is yes.
Okay then. Thank you guys again for making time to do this. The session will be, actually it has been recorded, and it will be available on the YouTube channel as well. This looks awesome. Great job again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay then. Well, see you soon.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.